I want to welcome everyone to our post-sermon conversation. Just really excited. If you're not aware, this is a conversation that Tim and I would usually have about the sermon we just preached, but this time we get a real privilege by being able to listen in on three of the ladies that put together our baby blessing this last Sunday. And so just really wanted to hear from them and kind of what drives them. I want to introduce them very quickly. Stacy Kendall is one of our children's ministers, has been doing so for a long time. I think to 2 decades. I think, is that an overstatement? 2 decades worth of leadership there. Stephanie Wills is also one of our children's ministers, and she's been doing that 2 years. Am I right? 3 years? Okay. And then Jenny Connell not only leads our BFF special needs ministry, but often, and especially for baby blessing, is our top level professional photographer. And so if you watched Baby Blessing, you saw her work. And so just really a great team that for me made this, and Tim included in his preaching, made this a really moving morning. And was just really nurturing for my soul. I always enjoy our worships, but this one especially really touched me and just blessed me with vision. So I know Tim's going to take the lead with some questions, so I turn it over to him.
Yeah, so first I want to say the Sunday was awesome. That was really great. Our whole family, we felt tender watching the whole thing. From the elders' blessing at the very beginning, which I think Shane and the elders just did an excellent job, to Larry's blessing at the end. Wasn't that beautiful? But the way, I don't know who came up with the idea to start with the children's advice. Was that you? That was awesome. That was fun. I feel like that drew us in immediately.
You always got to start with some humor. And I mean, there's no one better than Caleb Ingley, giving us his advice.
Don't shake it, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she'll hurt his mind. I love that.
Which reminds me, whenever we put this on Facebook Live, we will also put the morning worship in a link. So people can have that to check out, because that was really, I feel like if anybody were to ask me, hey, send me something that represents Memorial Drive, that's the link I will send. So you guys have worked with kids for a long time. So many questions here. Why? No. Why do you love working with kids? What is it that you are learning from kids?
I'll go ahead and start, unless Jenny wants to start.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I think, man, there's so many reasons. I mean, just like the obvious, like I go to church and have like 1,000 best little friends that just want to just run up and hug you. And I mean, you could never have a low self-confidence when you work with kids, because they just love so well. As far as being in and like working with the kids and teaching them directly about God, I feel like, man, that's such an honor. And one of the most important thing that I think my kids could ever learn or I get to teach other kids. It just feels like a huge honor. But what I learn from them is that we as adults make having a relationship with God a lot more complex than it has to be. They just have a very simple faith that's so pure and so easy for them. And I admire that, because we have so many distractions and so many just things that just make it complicating sometimes, when you could just look at them and just learn by that faith. And so that's what I love. And I love being surrounded by them, because it's just a good reminder. It's just a great reminder. So,
yeah. Thank you.
I would say kid-wise, just the inclusiveness that they have. I mean, I'll bring in my ties with kids with special needs, my own kids, working with, everybody else's kids. Just watching them know no difference from one to the next with anything. and just always willing to include somebody and reach out. And just, I mean, I always, one of my favorite verses just talks about, you know, how we need to be more like children. And I truly feel like that is a key to joy and a key to happiness, because they are so in tune with God. They are so in tune with each other, with people, that they don't like let the petty things get in the way of, sure, there's arguments and fights and all of that, but I mean, really their true hearts as kids is just to love and be joy to each other.
Thank you.
Came to my mind when the question was asked, like, what do we learn from kids? And this came as a new mom, and maybe that fits with baby blessing a little bit. But I had a few relationships early on, and relationships that I still struggle with today, that were just really, really hard, grudges held against people. And when Sutton was born, I saw something in her that just taught me so much, because we would be around that person, those people that I was holding grudges against, and she had no idea. She was so pure with that person, with those people. And so it taught me, like, man, Sutton is loving this person in such a pure, godly way. And I wanted to cling to that. I wanted to see that person from the eyes of a child. And so that's something that I stepped into in motherhood very early and learned from her. She was 1 year old. And so I'm thankful for those lessons that God's just provided that for me, for sure.
That reminds me of something else that I thought of whenever I was asked the question that just goes right along with that. And that is, when we get older, we just live life, and then we start to have these thoughts about certain types of people and certain ways people worship, or certain ways, just all these differences that of course we experience. And you look at a kid, and it's just like they're clueless, like, why do you not like that person? Because of what color they are, or why don't you, I mean, it makes no sense to them. And that purity is just, it's, man, I just would just love for us as adults to have that, and just be blind to the stuff that doesn't matter. So
I imagine that you guys can remember who your kindergarten teacher was, even your kindergarten Bible school teacher, and walk, like, maybe it doesn't come right to your head, but I bet if you thought about it for a minute, you could walk through most of the grades. And I love that these kids 40 years from now, 50 years from now, will remember you guys and what you're teaching them. Ethel Maynard. I believe Ethel Maynard was my kindergarten teacher when we first moved to Tulsa, which means she was it was a young Ethel Maynard. And you guys are creating foundations for these kids. So I just want to honor you guys. This is really big. This is really something that y'all are doing. And I love that it impacts you as much as it impacts them. It's really a beautiful thing. And I really feel like we're lucky at Memorial that our children are seen and adored. That when they make noise, parents look at them like, we are so glad you're here, and not do something about that noise. So talk to us a little bit about Sunday. When you sit down to prepare for this, what is it that you're wanting to happen for people?
I mean, I think in my end of it, in collecting the pictures and taking the pictures and meeting the families to get all of that. One is just a simple thing of when you're a new mom or, a new parent, you're snapping pictures all the time. But then when I ask them, go back and try to pick 15 to 25 pictures. Well, when your baby is 2 weeks old, that's still hard to pick 15 to 25 only. And the older ones, like, that's just tough. But I love that it gives the parents a moment to pull memories of their precious new babies to share with everyone. Because who doesn't, what new parent doesn't want to share their baby? So I love that in those moments that they get to go back and pull to them what are, treasures of pictures. And just in taking it, I mean, every year I think when it's done, I'm like, we should have done a behind the scenes video of that photo shoot. Like every year, I'm like, there's been years that I think our most is 15 babies. And normally we're in my house in the living room, and it's crazy and it's beautiful. And then this year, just thinking outside the box where we weren't all in one house together. And I did have Kate video this year, the shoot, and it lasted all of about 90 seconds was the entire photo shoot of the little ones, because they were all little this year, most of them. But just that time of it, I obviously love being with the babies during that time and having them all together and seeing all these new lives that are a part of our family now, all in one place. But I love hearing the conversations that start with the new moms around the room, because they all have something in common. They may not have anything else in common, but they all had a new baby that year. And there's a lot of things in common. And especially this year, it was neat to hear them, because none of them had, 5 out of the 6 babies, nobody had even met because of the pandemic.
Wow.
And so it was just, they were meeting each other for the first time through in person instead of in pictures. And it was just it was a very short time because it was cold outside, but it was just a really neat moment to watch these moms get to show off their babies to these other moms for the first time.
That's awesome.
What a challenging, unique year all around, like for our church family, for these individual families. And I wanted to do the same. I wanted a creative service that would honor and just treasure this crazy past year. And it's just so exciting to know that there's babies still being born, and I wanted to show that to our larger church family, like I said, in just that creative way. And I have a real heart just for our families at our church. I love the uniqueness of each 6 represented. They're all so unique, so different. And yet they bring something that our church needs, every single family. And so I was really, really excited. I didn't share this at all Sunday morning, but each family received like a little goodie basket from us as well. And that they usually do get some gifts from us. But this year, it being different, we were able to have our youth group, the widows of our church, and the elders and their wives write notes to the families. So I was able to stuff at least like 10 to 15 cards in each of those little baskets as well. And I wanted to be a fly on the wall in each house. Like, I can't imagine going through that and reading those. And I really do hope that that's just an extra special way that we bless them this year, because I know, it's just different. So I hope they treasure that as much as I did just stuffing it in their basket.
Yeah.
Well, and I wasn't a fly on the wall there, but I did talk to one of them in the evening who had a really, really long up all night. And they had finally gotten around to watching it in the afternoon. They sat down and watched it together, and they read the notes. And she was just super thankful and just felt the love from the notes. And I think too, just in that, showing them, with you thinking creatively on how we can show them love and all of this, and that yes, this year looks different, but it's also, they're just as important as any other year. And just showing them, like hearing her talk about it, and even just thinking if we were in that position this year, just knowing in times where it's just them at home and they're not seeing a lot of people right now and all of that, they're not forgotten. Like they're not alone in raising this baby and having this new baby, that there's a whole family, surrounding them. And just the notes, that was huge stuff. That was really,
Yeah, I'm glad. I mean, that's definitely what I wanted to happen. So thank you for sharing that.
I loved the idea of the notes too, because it kind of it's a good preview, I guess, of what I feel like our church family is like, and what I see from my kids growing up and having the support of so many people, that I know are encouraging them spiritually and that are involved in their life every day of the week, not just Sunday. And I just love that that's just hey, here's what you're going to get if you're, part of this church family. We're just going to be
Yep.
all about helping you with that baby and, helping raise them to know God best. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
one of the
fun.
things that I love watching each year is there are babies that I don't know. And I love that it's our extended family. And it's just one way to draw them in, and seeing that Sherry Martin's grandbaby had a baby that we
Yeah.
were honoring. It just felt like, oh yeah, what a fun opportunity to get to bless our extended family like that.
Yep. Absolutely. Very cool.
So what can you imagine besides what you want to happen, blessing those families, blessing those babies? What can you imagine it? How can you imagine that it blesses the rest of our body getting to be spectators in that?
I would hope that it gives them the opportunity to do kind of what we were just talking about, but just become familiar with the families and with the babies, and feel almost maybe not obligated, but maybe just to be there for the family and for the babies, and help them, and help them raise the kids. So
Yeah.
I think the cuteness of it all just encourages that, right?
mhm.
Yeah.
I was thankful to sneak in those little videos of them laughing and cooing and moving, because man, that was precious.
Whenever Zion's video was going on and the music in the background, I was just,
Ugh.
kind of hide and wipe the tears away. I
Yes.
loved the videos. The music videos this year was really neat.
Yeah.
I think it was neat too. I can't remember who it was, maybe Steve Heinen in the comments, like while it was going on, said at the beginning, like, these kids have gotten so big. And I came in a little late watching it, and I'm thinking, yeah, Zion, like, he's pretty big. He's 8 months old. And, and then I'm like, oh no, he's talking about the kids at the beginning, like Caleb and Ben and Henry and Kate, and Eli and Ellie. And I'm like, to me, I mean, I've seen them because I've done their pictures recently, but man, the kids are just, I mean, this year they've just hit, when you don't see in person some of the
Right.
kids for a year, they're big.
Yeah.
And I think, like, when he said that, like, I think that probably, I mean, I know for me, being a very much a kid person, that brought me joy, even though I've, seen them recently, but I mean, some of them I haven't. And just, I feel like, especially for some of our older generation who, I mean, kids bring life. And on Sunday mornings, kids would bring life, them running around and getting to see them. And if that's the only time they got to see the kids, and now they haven't, I feel like that was probably a pretty big thing, in that, just seeing some of the older kids as well as the new babies, but just being able to have that joy in that life.
Yeah. Stacy, did you mention on on the recording that we've been doing this for over 20 years?
Baby blessing.
Uh-huh.
I feel like Madeline was the very first year we did baby blessing, and she's 20 years old now. So, yeah,
I know that
remember sitting in a rocking chair on the stage, and I was like, "So what is this thing we're doing?" So,
it's funny because I didn't remember when the first one was, but I know the first year I did a group picture was Jackson's year. Jackson and Sawyer's year was the first year that I did I brought them all together and did.
Wow.
And they're about 16 now.
yeah, they're all in 16. Yep.
I had a friend come and visit with the elders at some point, I think a couple of years ago. And before he left, the elder said, "Hey, could we bless you?" And they gathered around him and blessed him and prayed over him. And we had breakfast right after it. And he was like, "Man, Tim, that was amazing." And it just makes me think this is just what's true about our body, that we're not just blessing babies, but that becomes a part of our speech, it becomes a part of how we talk to each other. And so I love the idea, Stacy, that your kids grew up
Mhm.
starting out with a blessing.
Me too.
And I love to imagine who is speaking into them now, because I'm sure from Arkansas to wherever they have Christians in their life, but when they come home, like, it just makes me happy to think they're running into Gerald Lovett, and they're running into Leah Henley.
Yep. It is really, really neat to have them come home and just have family that they're coming home to that's not us, but
Mhm.
and that has been so huge. I couldn't imagine. I just can't imagine looking back at all the people that we raised our kids with and other, parents that helped I just don't know that they would have turned out near as good as what they turned out. I just couldn't imagine doing raising my kids all by myself. And it's really, really neat. Um, I remember telling, this is totally a random thought, but um, there were times that Madeline would never come to me to talk to me about certain things, but who she would go to was Jennifer Curtis.
Mm.
And it never made me sad. It never made me sad at all. It made me so happy that when there was something she didn't feel 100% sure about telling me, that she had somebody that was a wonderful person that she could go to and just spill it out to,
Mm.
and that I could trust that what Jennifer said to her was sound advice. And so I am, and I remember as a kid there being things that I didn't want to share with my mom for whatever reason, but I am just incredibly grateful to look back and know that my kids had so many Jennifer Curtises in their life that they could go to, and that they did, and people I probably don't even know about. So anyway,
Yeah, I
I
could go ahead, finish.
that's fine. I was just going to say I know the blessing worked because they're very blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, man, I could say it over and over again how amazing our church family is and how unique and different it is to have like an actual family within our church. Um, Chris and I lived in Kansas City for about 4 years, and when we moved, Sutton was 5, so we had 5, 3, and almost 1 1 year old. And I mean, we searched for 4 years to find Memorial in Kansas City. I mean, we went everywhere and we never found it. And to say that one of the main reasons we moved back when that opportunity presented itself, it was to be back in this family. I mean, we didn't lose all connection for sure. I mean, we, still had a family here, but they were waiting for us to come back. Like that's just how it felt. And just to see, like Stacy was saying, like my daughter coming back and just falling right in place with those people and feeling support and excited from, friends, but also the Jennies and Amelias and all of that. Man, it's different and it's good. And if I can share that with these new families this year, I want to. And so I guess that's baby blessing. That's where it
Yeah.
starts, right?
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'll add to this if I can do it without getting emotional. I haven't so far. And those of you that hear me talk in front of people like this, you should be very proud of me right now because I haven't. But I've been at Memorial since I was born. I've never been anywhere else. And so I know baby blessing started 20 years ago in the formal sense of a baby blessing. But I mean, you ask me who was my kindergarten Bible class teacher, it was Nikki Kaler. I mean, I can tell you the list of who I had. I can picture the classrooms and talk about
Still the kindergarten, or she's the pre-K teacher still to this
who,
day.
who.
Nikki Taylor.
Yeah, yes, exactly. For those of you that don't know that, like she's still there doing pre-K. But just, I mean, Jack and Ethel Maynard, huge role in my life, huge. From when I was little, because their granddaughter, their granddaughter would come into town and we would run up and down the aisles of the church together playing. I think I maybe got to go to their house a few times. I vaguely remember that. So as a child, just looking up to them as another set of grandparents. Just when their granddaughter came to town, not even, but just knowing they were a constant in my life as a child. Ellie Miller, I mean, name after name after name I could go through of second parents. Lee and Sharon Wills were like second parents to me. As more grandparents, we used to do grandparents banquets, and I remember having a adopted grandparent and putting on a talent show with these, adopted grandparents. And but back to Jack and Ethel, like they grew with me in my spiritual walk, as in not only was it fun just to go to their house and play with their grandchild, but then as an adult sitting with my husband worshiping for years, they sat right in front of us and watching their relationship. And when one of them couldn't even stand, so the other one would stand and still hold their hand, or they both stood together, or they both sat together. But just it was huge, and something that I looked up to that's what I want us to be. So just being a part of being a baby at Memorial and growing up, and now being almost 39 at Memorial, that family connection there has just been huge for us. And to know that my kids have it huge. They can walk in and they're, without a doubt, they feel loved and welcomed and treasured there.
Yeah. I love that. If anybody's watching this part of Memorial, I would just want to encourage you. You matter, and your legacy matters. Like the way that you reach, when a mother's baby cries and you don't give them the stink eye, you matter. Like that is really important. Well, anything else that you would like to say before we close this down?
I will say something that I have been working on with my kids and with my extended kids. By extended kids, the kids that I'm around a lot, and that I see other people doing this as well. And I just think it's going to be huge for our future. And Larry spoke on this, and it's one of the things that I commented on Sunday morning, is just speaking life into our kids and calling out when you see them being Jesus to somebody. Because I mean, that's what we strive to do. That's what we should be striving to do, is loving and being Jesus when we can. And to have someone see that, I mean, even as an adult, have someone see that in us. And if we can call that out in our kids and have our kids in the practice of calling that out in their friends as they grow, it's not going to be a hard thing for them to do. It'll come, I mean, starting young, starting as these babies and toddlers, starting young, speaking life into them and calling out when you see Jesus moving in their life, or when you, I mean, I had an instant with Kate a few days ago where she noticed a need and acted on it, and it didn't go how she thought it was going to go. And we had a conversation about, but you heard the Spirit and you acted. And that was beautiful. And even though it didn't go how you thought it was going to go, you heard the Spirit and you acted on it. And that was exactly what you needed to do. And I just think that that is huge for the future of our world, of our country, just helping our kids see when they're being Jesus, and to speak it out to those around them too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. Very well said. Anybody else have anything they want to say before we're done? Jason, I can't believe you don't have something. You've
I
been
think
so
Jason
quiet.
should do something.
Hey, I'm past the 30-minute mark. That's what you need to know.
There you go. There you go.
I just want to say one of the things that touched me, and it always has, but it felt more significant, is if you think about what happened in our world 5 years before you were born, and it feels like ancient history. It could have been the biggest thing in the world. You know, I talk to kids that were born a few years after 9/11, and they talk about that like I talk about the, I don't know, British invasion, you know, that happened before I was born. It's a historical thing, but it doesn't consume me. Like I don't feel the bombing of Pearl Harbor like I feel 9/11, you know. And this is not to minimize history. It just puts things in perspective that we are consumed. When this baby blessing happened, we're in a very polarized society, and we have all these trouble. And there'll be new trouble when our kids are in their 20s and 30s and 40s, but this will be a blip. What we get so consumed in right now, when I see these kids, I'm like, you know, LaRon and Zion and these other children, they won't remember any of this. You know what I mean? It'll be ancient history to them, and they'll have their own world and their own beauty. And it just puts things in perspective, because I think all of us are always susceptible to losing hope, to feeling like this is so dark right now. What if it never gets bright? And every generation feels that way at some time. But when I see kids, I'm like, unless Jesus comes and interrupts this, they'll have a whole different perspective on the world. And I love that. It's like hope incarnate when you see a baby.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you for leading us yesterday. What's today? Thank you for leading us Sunday in blessing our babies and our families. I mean, that's really a beautiful experience. And thank you for joining us here. It's fun to unpack it and to know what's going on behind the scenes. You guys are making a lot of sacrifices, investing a lot of time, and it doesn't go unrewarded. It really matters. So thank you. All right. Love you guys. And we will talk to you again soon.
Bye, guys.